Welcome to my channel, and it is Shannon doing her way. So why not have a DIY, which is, again, it is going to be called DIS, and that is doing it Shannon's way. Again, I'm going to show you ways of which I'm doing projects and how I do it, or what's in my head. And I like to take out what's in my head and put it to action. So I was actually doing a makeover, and you'll see that video in another episode of my porch. So I'm making over my porch, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to turn the door white that was already kind of like changing colors. I ended up painting it black. Painting it black, I was like, okay, it's missing something, and now I want my whole porch to pop and actually create a whole vibe around my front porch. So doing so, I realized that, hey, I'm missing something, and that's a wreath. And I wanted to have more of a all year round wreath and not so much of a Christmas wreath or a fall wreath, and actually to go with the decor that's already out in our foyer of our porch area. So I was like, let me create something. So that's exactly what I did and I'm going to do. And it was like, hey, so let me get the materials, and now I'm actually going to put the wreath together. So come with me as I get these ideas out of my head. It's might not always be the way you would do it, but it's a way of which it accomplished my mission or my goal. So you're going to probably see me figure things out and fidget, because I'm figuring it out as I go. And you could take some inspiration from this and some ideas and put your spin and twist on it. But I hope you guys enjoy the video and that you can get inspired to do something on your own. Again, I'm doing a DIY wreath, and I hope you enjoy. So here, as you can see, I'm starting to kind of trying to figure out whether or not I'm going to keep this on, because I realized that I might want to change up the wreath later on. And because I like the thickness and this type of wreath, that it was kind of hard for me to even find it. I wanted to make sure I could reserve it. I first wanted, at one point, wanted to just to paint it. And then I realized that I know this stuff becomes very messy, so let me keep the plastic on, and when I put things on top of it, you wouldn't be able to tell, plus it won't shred and shed all over the place. So again, I wanted to reuse this or repurpose this wreath later on, and then wanted to make it so finalized by painting it and also taking off the plastic. So I did instead kept both original, which was the plastic, and keeping it the color, just realizing that it's best to probably just use a ribbon. So that, in fact, is what I did. I used the ribbon for the colors that I was wanting to achieve, and I still wanted some of that natural earth tone looking color. So I wanted some of that to still peek through and not have my wreath completely one color or the other or pattern. So I kind of alternate, and you'll see with me doing that. So for each color or ribbon that I'm choosing to put on the wreath, I'm going to wrap it around about 3 times, because when I do realize that I got all the black that I wanted to use on the wreath that they had, I only had 1 roll of that. So the other pattern I had 2 rolls of, but because still it was alternating, I had to make sure I had enough to kind of go around the wreath 3 times and look solid. So I used the pins to secure it, starting it off and ending it, and
when I first started, I was trying to figure out if I could use both sides of the wreath, but you end up having to decide which side is going to be the front or the back because of the way the pins are, and it's not unison because I didn't start them, and because when you start using that other pattern ribbon, the lines, so that became a little bit more meticulous. So even more so happy that I had the pins, because it kind of allowed me to pin the ribbon in the exact position. But I can tell you, I go over the price of the wreath with you, and the wreath cost $5, and I got that from Big Lots. The Christmas ornament wreath was I believe, 98. And I was like, wow, this is exactly what my patterns are on the front porch, the rug, and the seating area. And I was going to make a ribbon, so it was like, okay, to save me not to have a make a ribbon, and this is a lot more different and cuter. I was like, so even with the ribbon being a lot more nicer than I would have probably done on the bow, and it stays in form because it was wire form, I have the pampas grass that was probably the most. It cost me $19, and I got that from Amazon. And the zip ties I actually had, but they have a variety pack of like 8, 10, 11, or like longer inches in like the white and the black for like $9. And I was like, wow, I can definitely use this and have it at home for when I need it. And the letter D, I got that from Joann's. That was probably $1.99, no, $2.99. And the ribbons, of course, it was during the week, it was 40% off, and I believe originally the ribbon was like $7.99. So with the 40% off, I believe it was like $3, and I got 3 rows. So when you look at it, the wreath was all probably underneath $50, in fact, and it's year round. So I can reuse this wreath and take off these materials and use them for another project as well, because it's not as much glue, if very little, because they're pins and zip ties that I use in order to put this wreath together. one row of the black, that's when I was like, okay, I gotta start improvising. So I had to kind of really be meticulous, see if I could cut and trim on another area that I used a little bit too much of, and re-roughed. And that's in fact what I did, because I was wrapping it a little bit more over the price side, because I couldn't pull it off the plastic, or the plastic would rip. But I made it do what it do, because again, I'm gonna do it my way. So once I get all the colors and the kind of what the pattern that I want, I start to kind of secure them down, figure out which side will be the best, I guess, way of which I'm gonna lay my design out. When I figured that out, because again, I thought I was gonna be able to use it on either side, and now I feel like I should have I thought I was putting them all on the inside, but you can see if it's not at the right angle that you stopped in the inside. So I maybe would suggest it may be going on the bottom when you end the yarn, if you're not putting it on every side. It's different for different patterns, but for the eye and how it needs to look. But by the time I figured when I was going to put things on top of it, you're not going to be so distracted that the patterns are not as even, or could be a lot even, if that makes sense. And you probably can see what I'm doing, and what I'm doing is kind of like laying out the pattern, or how I want it to aesthetically look on the wreath. So I kind of play with some things and see whether or not I want to cut. I try not to cut as much pampas or cut as much of the stems as possible, because again, I want to use it again later on in another way, and not just be the final way of which I use it by just this. So I wanted to be able to repurpose the pampas when I was done. So I tried not to cut as many of the stems off, and kept as much and preserved as much as I could. But my best option, the way I wanted to hide and secure the pampas to the wreath, was with zip ties. And it really, in fact, worked very well. I just had to kind of bend, and there's no such thing as bending pampas, because that means you're breaking it. So I kind of had to put it in the way of which I wanted it to go, and then I would figure out, as I began to know that I needed to hide when I layered, I knew to hide them, put them on top of those sticks. So you could probably see that in this video. And at this point now, after everything is kind of laying the way it should, I'm starting to clip these zip ties so that you can't see those. And at first I was gonna have those hanging on the inside when I realized those were not aesthetically looking right because you can't see in the inner circle of the wreath. I decided that they needed to go in the back because again, it's not gonna be a two-sided wreath, it is just one-sided. So you won't see what's in the back of the wreath anyway. So that is me pushing all of them towards the back and I will cut them. So now I'm one step closer to finishing the wreath.
Fun fact about the pampas grass is once it is in heat, it will fluff up. So even more so, all those empty areas will be filled in when it fluffs.
So again, I was trying to figure out the placement of where I wanted the letter D, and you can see that it has been painted black, but I didn't know if I wanted it in the inside, the outside, the flower coming from the D, or just what. Again, it's just by eye and what do you feel and how you like, and that's what I was kind of going through during this time, just really trying to decide what was the option and way in which I wanted it to hang. And finally, when I realized, because you want to see it and still the way in which you need to position, I finally figured that out, and that's what I was doing. So I had to glue it, and that was the only time that I used glue was during the time of placing the D and making sure the flower was exactly the way I wanted it to be. So this is the finished product. I hope you guys like it. I hope that you will stick around to get more inspiration. Again, this is the DIS, doing it Shannon's way. Here's the final reveal. It's on the door, and I hope you guys will continue to stick around to be inspired. If you like it, I hope that you comment and you subscribe to my channel so you can get more DIY.